It's 6 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. We'll turn it over to you, sir, for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Amaya, members of the board, this evening we have cadets from the Navy Junior ROTC at Los Fresnos High School here to help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I'm going to ask them to approach the lectern and introduce themselves.
Mr. Amaya, members of the board, and Mr. Salazar, good evening. I am Cadet Lieutenant Commander Eric Garcia. I am the commanding officer of the Los Fresnos Navy JROTC unit.
And I'm Cadet Lieutenant Commander Denise Cabrales, and I'm the operations officer.
Will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for the Texas Pledge, honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, and one indivisible.
We want to thank Cadet Lieutenant Commander Garcia and Cadet Lieutenant Commander Cabrales. They are under the direction of Major Arjona and Chief Marquez. Thank you again.
Ms. Garcia, can you assist us with roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Jesus Amaya?
Present.
Mr. Leonel Garza? Mrs. Sandra Garcia, I'm here. Mr. Martin Castillo, who's not present today. Mrs. Darlene Peterson? Present. Mr. Ray Faria?
Present.
Mr. Ruben Trevino?
Present.
Mr. Gonzalo Salazar?
Present.
And Ms. Elizabeth Neely?
Present.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. I think we start this evening with a public hearing on the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas. Mr. Salazar.
Mr. Amaya, members of the board, at this time I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Young, our Chief Financial Officer, who will give us information, give us an overview of this accountability measure on our finances. Mr. Young.
Thank you, Mr. Salazar, Mr. Amaya, members of the board. Great privilege tonight to come and present the school's first, which is TEA's version of the accountability system for school business and finance. So as they come coming up on the screen. This is a public hearing, so we will give a brief presentation on the ratings indicators, and then the public will have a chance to ask any questions or make any comments. There is a packet. There is a backup in your packet, and the slides simply go over a lot of what is in your packet, but in a more condensed form.
Mr. Young, there might be someone, since it's a public hearing, there might be one or two people who would like a copy of that, at least while you're getting that going. That way you could get started in some of the...
Sure. Anybody, there was
Yep.
a stack outside on the counter, but if
We're good.
anybody needs it, please raise your hand. Can y'all see anybody? I'd be happy to pass them out if you need to.
No, we're good. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. So we're waiting on that. So the accountability system has undergone some changes in recent years. This was supposed to be the final version of the school first, and it was a 3-year implementation. Thank you, Bill. It began 15 years ago, and it was in response to Senate Bill 875 of the 76th legislature way back in '99. Primary goal was to achieve the quality performance in the management of school district financial resources. I would point out that Los Fresnos has achieved the highest possible rating each of those years. So it's our 15th year at the highest level of the rating. The transition was supposed to have taken place due to the legislature in House Bill 85, which was back in 2013, which changed some of the indicators in here and some of the way they're calculated. So 2014, 2015, 2016, those were all supposed to be transition years. 2017, which is the report we're presenting tonight, which is actually based on data from the 2015-16 school year. That's what we're looking at. It was supposed to be the highest standard. Well, our more recent legislatures now have added to that, and it looks like, it seems like every biennium now we're going to be having to raise the bar a little bit more on the financial accountability area. So we are at the highest criteria right now, but we've been given some chances to give input on additional criteria that will be added to this in the near future. So for the next few years, we said we were told to expect increased rigor in the accountability ratings for first through the year 2020. And I imagine if it's anything like the academic version, we'll continue to see that beyond 2020. As you recall, last year they only gave us the option of passed or failed, and of course we passed. And prior to that, we had a graduated scale, and it looked very similar. Looked very similar to the scale you see here under current, except there was a D or another level in there. There were 5 actual standards that you could have. 4 were passing and only 1 failed. Now they've gone back to the graduated scale, but it's an ABC version. So you score A, you get an A, a B, C, or you fail. They're still critical indicators. The first 5, which there really are 6, but they took number 2 and made 2 indicators out of it. But nevertheless, they call them 5 indicators. All have to do with your annual audit report. And if you'll see it, at the top up here, you'll notice that was it turned in on time? Was there an unmodified opinion? Was it free of any instance of material weaknesses in internal controls? Of course, we answered yes to all 3 of those. If we had missed 1 or 2A, you would automatically be put on the substandard list. You would get an F automatically, regardless of how many points you scored. 2B doesn't count that way, but 3, 4, and 5 do, which are our next ones. 3 has to do with compliance in the payment terms of all debt. Did you make all your debt payments? 4 is for timely payments to TRS, Texas Workforce, and the IRS. This is new, and they've decided that if you miss a payment to any of these organizations, you're automatically given an F for substandard. So I don't know that we've ever missed a payment to any of these organizations, but it certainly raised awareness in the business office. Number 5 Was the total unrestricted net asset balance greater than zero? Simply, did you have money in your account? Are you solvent? It's kind of a measure of solvency. Again, we said yes, or our auditor said yes to all three of these, so no issues with the critical indicators there. And then we move on to the scored indicators. So there are 10 scored indicators, and they can be scored from, you can receive from 1 to 10 points each. So provided you passed all of the critical indicators, then the score that you receive, the total score, will reflect where you end up at what rating they assign you. The first are all very familiar. They've been on most of the first reports for quite some time now. Do you have cash on hand sufficient to cover in the general fund to cover operating expenditures? Yes, we received all 10 points possible there. Was the measure of current assets, current liabilities ratio sufficient to cover short-term debt? Yes. Again, we received all 10 points. Was the ratio of long-term liabilities and total assets sufficient to support the long-term solvency? And the answer again is yes, we scored all 10 points. So you can see most of these have to do with solvency and whether you can operate effectively. Number 9, did the school's general fund revenues equal or exceed expenditures? And if not, did you have at least 60 days of cash on hand? We did. We far exceeded that. So again, we received all 10 points on that indicator. So the next 5, number 10 was one that we did not receive all the points on, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. It was the debt service coverage ratio sufficient to meet the required debt service? At first glance, it's not easy to understand what that is. I'm still not sure that I understand what it is, and I haven't met anyone who claims to understand what it is, but I can show you what happened there. Was the school district administrative cost ratio equal to or less than the threshold? Yes, we far exceeded the minimum threshold on debt ratio, administrative cost ratio, so we received all 10 points there. Did the district not have a 15% decline in student to staff ratio over 3 years? No, we have not. Scored all 10 points there. Did the comparison of PEAMS data compare to the annual financial report data by a variance of less than 3%? Yes, our variance was within 1/10,000th of a percent there, so very good there, simply a rounding difference. The last 2 indicators, did the external independent auditor indicate the financial report was free of any instance of material noncompliance? Yes, they did. So we scored all 10 points there. Did the district not receive an adjusted repayment schedule? You know, some districts, districts get paid in advance by TEA based on what TEA thinks is going to happen. And occasionally TEA is off the mark, so you get more money than you should have gotten. They end up taking it back from you. If your financial condition is not strong, then a lot of those districts go back to TEA and say, hey, don't take all that money from me at one time. Can you spread it out? They ask for a payment plan. And what they're saying here is if you did not ask for a payment plan to repay debt, you were strong enough to handle it yourself, then you get all 10 points. And of course, we did there as well. So the sum of points earned for the district in the 2017 first was 92. There are 100 possible points. Now, I wanted to go back just briefly before we wrap up and talk about the one we didn't get all the points on. So what could we do better? Where is the room for improvement here? Well, this is one of the newer indicators, and they're still, believe it or not, taking comments on this indicator. And it's now looking like after this year, when everybody has had to deal with it, it's now looking like they're either going to remove it from the first or they're going to modify it a lot. This is the mathematical calculation that TEA uses to get to this number. Start with your total revenues, they minus your total expenditures, then they add in debt service, function code 71, 72, and 73. Then they add the bond fund ending debt service fund balance. The third one was from all funds. This is just strictly from your bond funds. Then they add in another function code, 81, and divide by the same number they have up here, the debt service function codes here. And they're looking at this ratio down at the bottom. All of this, by the way, comes straight off the audit report. We could refer you back to those. And what they were saying, and this was either you could receive 2, 4, 6, 8, or 10 points. You started at a 1, and if you received 1, you got, or less than 1, you got 0. Between 1 and 1.05, you got 2 points, and that's the way it ran. In our case, if you see this huge difference here, I saw that and I thought, that's not right. That can't be. Well, as you recall, in 15, 16, we did a refunding, and we refunded some refunded bonds already. So right in here, this big difference between revenue and expenditure. Now, we might see a negative there. I mean, occasionally we do, because we know we have capital improvement projects and things like that, and we do take money from fund balance to do that. After all, that's why we put the money there. So that was a planned deal. And in this year, we had some construction projects. We had finished up the LFU instructional wing, the new wing over there. We had gone at least halfway through pool project, but that still doesn't come anywhere near to, $12 million difference here. Well, the main difference, the main contributing factor to this was that we repaid $15 million worth of principal and bonds. And of that, ordinarily it would be around $3 million or so that we would have spent out of that fund. But in this case, because we did a refunding, because of the rules for the way you report that information, it shows up as having expended it in that fund. So a lot of the comments are coming in saying, okay, this is fine if you need to pull this indicator, but if you don't pull it, you need to modify it for those districts that have refunding issues, because it's not fair to include refunding in an issue like this. So right there, that big difference here is what put us behind the 8 ball to begin with. So first of all, including it in there. And then, of course, they showed the actual payments again out here, and then they take it into account down here as well. So it impacts you in all areas. There's almost no way to escape. If you do a substantial refunding, then it's hard to get away from that. We went through and plugged in our most recent year. That, as a matter of fact, you'll be on schedule to receive the audit report for 2017 next month. But even though we haven't reported those numbers yet, we're fairly confident within a few dollars exactly what they are. And I can tell you that we far exceed this criteria. So if they choose to keep this in the first report for next year, I fully anticipate we'll have all 10 points on this one. I think it was just a matter of timing. Well, I know it's just a matter of timing that we did this refunding and they introduced this new indicator that year. So barring, we would actually be we're way off the scale. With the numbers for this current 2017 audit, we'll be at 1.5 and higher. Well, their scale only goes up to 1.4. So we're far and above what's needed to earn those points. Unless they've changed the first again between now and then, but I don't think they will at this point in time. So we're good there for next year. But even though we did miss the points there, we scored all the points in all the other categories. So here, how do they determine your rating? Did the district answer no to indicators 1, 2A, 3, 4, or 5? If so, the rating is F. Can't get past that. That's why they call them critical indicators. If you do get past that, then you go on to the score, and as you can see there, they broke it down A, B, C, just like when we were in school. So 90 to 100 is considered A, or superior performance. The district scored 92 points, so that gives us a rating of superior for 2017.
This is a public hearing, but I'll go to the trustees first, and then we'll ask the audience if they have any questions. Go ahead, ma'am.
I have a question, but Mr. Young, I just wanted to say thank you for clearing up that number 2 points and making a lot of sense, because I did question, and I know you want to get all 10s, but I know you'll do it next year.
Thank you, ma'am. And I would say in your meetings that you all attend, I would ask that if you're ever asked, please to chime in and say it's just not fair to include refundings in that measure. What the district did in those refundings, I'll just take a few seconds to remind you. You know, we saved over $5 million in debt service payments for our community. That's money out of our community's pocket. We saved over $3 million on a net present value basis. So forget about the $3 million as if it were today. We saved that money. So that doesn't count anywhere in this. But that, if they leave that indicator the way it is, it will. Now, we're not looking at refunding again in the next year or two in the future, but eventually we probably will take advantage of that. At some point, the district will, and I think the people that come up with these need to understand that. Thank you for your support.
I want to add that took place at the same time that we were building instructional facilities without any additional debt service to our community, which is doing the right thing. And so to lose points when your expenditures are exceeding your revenues, we were doing it for the right reasons. So.
Anyone in the audience who has a question or comments? Mr. Young, once again, thank you very much for your hard work and your integrity and the integrity of your staff and their hard work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Concludes the public hearing. We go on to election results. Mr. Salazar. Sorry.
Mr. Amaya and members of the board, a recent election, during our most recent election, we had an uncontested board election, and this evening we will not be canvassing the election, but we do need to administer the oath of office and certificates of election for Mr. Ray Farias, position 3, and Mr. Jesus Amaya, position 4. Mr. Young is going to assist us with that. Mr. Young?
Ray, any comments?
Well, there was a good election that you and I just won. Thank you.
I agree with you. I agree. At this time, we're going to take a short recess. We have some, yes, sir, what'd I do wrong? Item 2. Okay, sorry. Reorganization of board, that was self-serving, wasn't it? Reorganization of board election officers. Do I have any type of motion? Ms. Garcia.
Oh, wait, I was gonna move that we keep the officers as is, but I'm an officer. Can I still do it? Can I still make the motion?
Yes.
I can. Okay, then I move that we keep the officers for next year as we have them this year, with Mr. Maya as president, Dona Garza as vice president, myself as secretary, and Martin Castillo as assistant secretary.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Trevino? Have a motion and a second to keep the officers as was this year for the next year. Discussion. There being no discussion, all those in favor of keeping the officers that we had this past year to the next year, please raise your right hand. Unanimous. Mr. Garza was a little reluctant, but he got it up there. At this, now we can take a short recess. We have some goodies back there. Please come join us. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and get started. Those of you who are still finishing up, please go ahead. There's still some stuff back there. It's not going to bother us any. We'll go on to item number 8, the 2016-2017 PB Moss report. Mr. Salazar.
Mr. Maya, members of the board, each year we bring you the performance-based monitoring analysis system. It is another accountability measure that looks at how well our students perform in the programs that serve them. And this evening, Mr. Jimmy McDonough and Mrs. Ada Amaro Cibaja will present this information.
Thank you, Mr. Salazar, President Amaya, members of the board, public audience. As Mr. Salazar kind of prefaced this report, the PBMAS, or the Performance-Based Monitoring Analysis System, is TEA's mechanism to evaluate and monitor how districts are performing with certain key subpopulations of students and special programs. The 4 key programs that are detailed in this report specifically point to our bilingual ESL, our CTE, which is our Career Technology Education Program, ESSA, which is the Every Student Succeeds Act, which replaced the old NCLB, which targets our Title I and our migrant students, and also our special education program. What PBMAS does is it basically assigns performance levels in all of these different areas and programs. And the scale that it rates districts and these different subpopulations and programs, it's a 0 to 4 scale. 0 being the best performance, 4 being the poorest rating that you can receive. So again, we always say when we're explaining it to our principals and our teachers, it's kind of like golf. Lower score is the better. So you want to try to get as close to a 0 as possible, or zeros. That's what we're shooting for. What TEA has done now is they're actually giving districts in each of those key 4 areas, they're actually giving you a mean, an average of where you are performing as a district. So you can see, just to preface this, in each of the 4 areas, this is our average performance level. So we are at a 0.6 in bilingual, a 0.5 in CTE, 0 in ESSA, and a 0.7 in special ed. So again, from a 0 to 4, this is our average in each of those areas, which is excellent. The first area that I'm going to briefly go over, and what we're going to do, is just kind of hit some of the highlights where we're performing well and areas where we need to improve. You will see, of course, in all of the different scores and percentages that we'll go over, in Los Fresnos, of course, we have very high expectations for all of our students. These particular subpopulations, of course, are students that have the greatest challenges, and these are the subpopulations that everyone across the state it's very challenging in order to assist them, because these students do have cognitive disabilities, different disabilities that they struggle with, or in the case of our bilingual students, there are language barriers that they're struggling with. So it's just something that we have to keep in mind, that these are subpopulations that we have to just constantly monitor and work with to help these students to succeed. You're going to see in all of the different slides that we've prepared, we have basically showing you, at this point right now, the state has not released the state and region performance averages, so that we can, which they're due out in December, and we'll come back and give you those comparisons so that we can actually see where we're performing in comparison to the region and the state. But we do have the state target to get to a 0, which is the best, that's what you can get. So what we've done is we've basically given you the blue bar is in order to receive a 0, that best possible score. Then the second bar, which is that light pink, is our performance last year. And then the second one is the red maroon is our performance this year. So in this particular chart, we have our district special ed student performance grades 3 through 8. This is year after exit. So these are special ed students the year after they have exited from the program. So they've been in, receiving special ed services, and now our committees have met and they have exited them from the program. So they're out in the mainstream without any services. And you can see that in each of the areas, we received a 0 in every single area and are almost at 100% passing in every single area. So our special ed students are doing great after they exit the program, which is the key. That's what we want, is for students in special ed to eventually basically be dismissed from the program and be able to function without that support and to do well. So this is great because it shows this is the ultimate goal. The next is our district SPED grades 3 through 8, our passing rates of the students that are in the program right now. And you'll see on that we have a 0 in science, the best possible score, a 1 in math, and then a 2 in reading, writing, and social studies. The key thing that I would like to bring your eyes to, though, is that you can see we're not at the 0 in every single subject area, but what we are very proud of this year is that we have improved every single area. There's improvement from last year to this year. In some of them, you'll see, for example, science and social studies, it's basically a double-digit increase, which in special ed is a major goal to be able to have a double-digit increase, and then 7 points in math and reading. Last year in social studies, we were at a 3. We're now at a 2. In math last year, we were at a 2. We've come up to a 1. Science last year, we were at a 1. We've come up to a 0. So we're just seeing across the board an improvement. We're not where we want them to be, because we want 0s across the board and we want it up in the 90s, but we're heading in the right direction. This particular slide is another part of it. Throughout the PBMAS report, there are indicators that deal with performance, which you saw on the last 2 slides, and there are also participation and inclusion indicators. Okay? This first one, which is the STAR All 2 participation, we did receive a 3. The only thing I just want to point out on this is a very controversial indicator in special ed circles. Most people in the special ed community are fiercely against this particular this indicator, because the STAR All 2 is a specific assessment that the state has for our students that have the most severe cognitive challenges. So, for example, these are students that have traumatic brain injuries, intellectual disabilities, nonverbal students. And so what the state has basically done, though, is they've put, in essence, a threshold. And if you're over that threshold, you're basically getting a mark against you as far as that. And this is not something that you can really manipulate as far as, and what we basically in Los Fresnos tell our art committees, we want you to make the decision that is best for the student.
Mr. McDonough, and that threshold is a threshold for the percentage of students in special ed, the percentage of students that you're testing, and we're doing what's right for each student instead of...
Exactly. Instead of, we're not going to manipulate this in order to manipulate this particular indicator. We're going to make the decision that's best for the students. And there's a lot of data that shows that this can be really skewed when you're dealing with a lot of rural districts where maybe there's not great prenatal care, things of that. There's a lot of factors that can go into that could maybe cause certain districts to see higher incidences of students with severe disabilities. So just a little note on that. The next three that you see that we receive a 0 and 2 1s on are inclusion indicators. These are probably the most important indicators you can look at when you're looking at special education, because what you're being graded upon in each of these indicators is the percentage that you have special ed students out in the mainstream, which is, for us in Los Fresnos, that's the main thing that we want to see. All students, regardless of their disabilities, that they're out in the mainstream getting those opportunities, and they are basically being educated with their regular ed peers. In that the one special ed, the early childhood program, those are our students that are in our preschool disabilities, our PPCD program. We used to have a 3. Just 2 or 3 years ago, we were a 3 in that category. We made a concerted effort to really try to get those kids at that level, at that young age level, get them out into the mainstream, even if it's just partial day, getting them out in the mainstream. We've got it down to a 0, and it's going to just, it's good for those kids. So that's something we're pushing. And the same in the next 2. The special ed regular class for ages 6 through 12. This is the percentage of students that are out in the mainstream for more than 80% of the day. We're not at the 70% for a 0, but we did receive a 1, which is a solid rating in that. And then again for the 40%, which is those students that are in resource classes or a unit for certain percentages of the day. So again, what we tell all of our art committees, the main question that we ask is this student being given the opportunity to be educated out in the mainstream to the greatest extent possible. Next 2 indicators are basically our annual dropout rate and our special ed graduation rate. Both of them, you'll see we have an excellent rate, and we're at 0 in both. We did meet the graduation rate. We were at a 1 last year, went up to a 0. It was through required improvement, so we didn't hit the state target of 80%, but because we did improve from 75 to 77, we did receive a 0. The next category is our career and technology education program. And I just want to make a little note on this that you're going to notice in this particular area. Traditionally, the past 4 or 5 years, we've had 0s across the board in CTE. What we realized, though, last year was that with our subpopulations, with our LEP students and our special ed students, we had very low percentage of students that were special ed and our bilingual students that were taking a coherent sequence of CTE classes. And so it's something that we made a concerted effort last year to get those kids those opportunities so that they're in these career and technology education classes, which was great. What you're going to see is now maybe the scores for the CTE program, you'll see a dip in the scores, but again, we're making decisions that are best for kids, and those are the kids that really need to be in these career and technology classes, that they're in, but not just in a class, but following a coherent sequence. So you can see in this first one, the overall EOC passing rate for all students taking CTE classes, we received a 0 in every category. You can see that the percentage is over 90% in every single category except ELA. But you can see the slight dip because we have encouraged these different subpopulations to be placed into these classes and to receive that opportunity.
We've done it, and more than encourage, we have to find ways, create ways of allowing them to participate in CTE classes, because a lot of these kids are already taking ESL classes, other classes and remedial classes that fill up their schedule, so we have to create 0 periods and find ways of getting them into these classes that may not fit into their traditional schedule.
Yes, sir. And in every single ARD committee, which is the annual meeting that we hold for every single special ed student at the secondary level, we have a requirement that they must address CTE and what are the opportunity, and explain to parents, these are classes, and to the students, these are the opportunities. So we're making sure that they're not losing out on that opportunity to go into some of these great programs that we have at the high school, okay? So again, you'll notice as far as this is our LEP population, okay, some of our bilingual population. You can see again, you'll see drops as far as in the performance. We're a 0 in everything except for a 2 in ELA. ELA, of course, is the area that we struggle with, everyone in the state struggles with on those 2 EOC tests. But again, if you were to look at the numbers, you'll see we were down in some of them on those. It's deceiving on those 2016 scores because it could be 20 kids, as opposed to now you'll see some of them in some of those categories. We went from 20 kids to 100. So we've increased the opportunities. Yes, you're seeing scores that CT is receiving because they have students that are trying to overcome these challenges. Economically disadvantaged, we're 0 in every single category. You can see again, over 90%, every single subject area except for ELA. Again, slight dip, but within that economically disadvantaged category, you have many students that are also, we call them they're double-coded kids, so they're kids that are also special ed or LEP are bilingual students, so you're seeing that again. But again, we saw in some categories, it was up 100 students more than were rated the year before. And then finally, special ed. This is, of course, the student group that we have to really target and support as far as passing the EOC. Again, we saw drops in the percentage. Again, those 2016 percentages were very misleading. Some of them were single digits of students, and now you'll see in all of them, in some of those categories, over 100 students. But again, it's not all of our special ed, it's not the entire special ed population, it's the 100 that at this point are following a coherent sequence. So that's just something to know when you're looking at those percentages. And then CTE performance indicators this is to ensure, they're basically making sure that you are allowing students to take courses. They look specifically at non-traditional male course participation. We received a 0 on this, but again, they look at the number of males that are taking classes that maybe traditionally were not viewed as a pathway for males, maybe food science, things of that nature. And then on the other hand, female course completion, non-traditional, that females are taking part in your welding classes, different classes that maybe were not in the past viewed as a class that the females would go in. So it's good, even though we're at a 0, we're always watching that to make sure if we see a drop, are we making sure that we're not tracking kids by their gender or dissuading them from a certain path as far as taking these CTE courses. One of our best welders we ever had was a female, I think, that we had at the high school. Dropout and graduation indicators, excellent, 0 across the board. Again, we have great rates as far as that, 99% for the graduation rate. Now I'm going to have Ms. Amato go over the bilingual and ESSA.
I'll review our English language learners to see how are they doing and performing. Starting with the district bilingual education. Bilingual education, even though it says grades 3 to 8, we have bilingual education in grades 3 to 5 here in Los Fresnos. And then I'll let you know ESL is on grades 6 through 8. So first we're going to see the bilingual. It says 3 to 8, but again it's only 3 to 5. Passing rate, all the performance, we received a 0 in all the categories. If you look across in all subject areas, we exceed all state standards. If you look at reading and writing, we went low. We met the state standard, but we scored a little lower than last year. But every time we see the reading and writing follow each other, instructional purposes. It is difficult for our English language learners. These are the most critical content, the reading and the writing. We know we do listening and speaking, and reading and writing comes after. But they're doing fairly well, meeting their state standards. District ESL, now we have ESL in grades 6 through 8. These are some of our students who are a smaller group. Most of them have exited in the elementary, in the bilingual 5th grade, 3rd, 4th, 5th, we exit our students. We have an early exit program. Those who stay in the program in 6th through 8, it's a smaller group. Their value will be higher. They're having difficulty with the English language, so we can tell here in the math we received a 0 with required improvement. Even though we did not meet the state standard, we had a fairly good increase. We did receive a 63.6. They gave us a 0. In reading, again, reading and writing, they fairly go together. We had a 3, and in science, a 1, and social studies, a 3. We're working right now in social studies. If we look across in social studies in 8th grade, it's a difficult, historical. They have to remember history, and some of them have not been exposed to it, so it's a new content for them. We're also doing social studies and content area and reading literacy to assist some of the students with this subject. The reading year after exit, the LEP, ELO year after exit, these are your M1. So what they do is we exit our students and we monitor them. We monitor them for 2 years. Currently, we monitor them for 2 years. But PBMAS looks at their performance on their first year of exit. So how did they do after the first year of exit? We had a 0 in all categories. We look across grade 90s. Across, our problem is still our social studies, but we're still over our state target. So many times, the students who exit after the first year are scoring even higher than the general ed population. So we know our program is working, and when they exit, they are being successful. Then we have our LEP not served. Many times parents might say, I do not want my child to participate in the bilingual ESL program. So they sign what we call a PD, a parent denial. And these are the students who are not served. We still have an obligation for them that we have to monitor them. How are they doing? How is their performance? Many times the LPACs, if we feel that they need the program, the LPAC committee, the Language Proficiency Assessment Committee, will get together and say, we talk to the parent and advise if it's in the best interest of a student to join and receive services from the bilingual program. Here we see our LEP not served fairly well in math, in reading, science, social studies. We received a 3, and all the other subjects are a 0. So we notice a trend that social studies continues to be an area that we need to continue to focus for our students. But in all the other subjects, we exceeded the state target. Then we have our LEP Star end of course. These are our high school students. So some of them did not exit elementary, they did not exit the middle school. This is what we call their long-term ELLs. They've been in the program. Some of them might be recent immigrants with 3 or less years that are participating, and they still have to take an English end of course or a reading or math and science. They're pretty successful in math. We know our bilingual students are very, very strong in math. And look at that social studies. The teachers are doing great. And science, we're still above the state. No, we're still lacking behind. And ELA, well, they have the language barrier. Now they have to read. Now they have to answer questions. And ELA is a problem for them. It's something they have to work in. ELA, mostly where they have the most difficulty is on their English 2. And they have to take English 1 and, of course, in English 2. So English 2 is the area that they have problems. Our students, our ELL, are also monitoring the performance and the English proficiency. How much English do they know? And they are assessed through TELPAS. And TELPAS stands for Texas English Language Proficiency Assessment System. So what we do is we look into reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Reading is at 50%, writing is at 30%, listening and speaking 10% is what the system is assessing. Now the test is more rigorous. Now the reading is online, and it mirrors our STAR. So it's not just the English proficiency, how much English do they know, but now it's also assessing comprehension in English. It's very closely aligned. Recent in the past 2-3 years, they aligned TELPUS to STAR. So what they measure here, we're doing fairly well. And the first one is the TELPUS reading multi-year with beginning proficiency level rate. So they're looking at our students and saying how many have multiple years and they have not increased from a beginner to an intermediate. They stay within the beginner. How they assess them is they provide that test, and then they say, are they a beginner, intermediate, advanced, or advanced high? At what proficiency level are they at? If they are at the beginning and they stay there multiple years, then that counts against us. Here, we are at a 5.3. The state target is a 7.5. So students are doing fairly well. We received a 0, saying they're increasing, they're making progress, and they're not staying at the beginning level. The next part is the TELPUS composite rating. So here they take all, your reading, your writing, your listening, and your speaking, and they say for those students who have been in the U.S. schools 5 or more years, how are they doing? Are they in the beginning and intermediate? Have they increased? And they want us to go into the advanced and the advanced high. But if they're in the beginning intermediate and they stay there for 5 or more years, that's where this can affect. It's very difficult for some of our students, and it seems that we are in the intermediate level, and it's hard to get out of the intermediate level to go from an intermediate to an advanced. So those students that we see that are struggling is because they stay in the intermediate level. So right now we have a 7.6, a little above the state, which was at a 7.5. So there we received a 1.
Can I make a comment here, Mrs. Amaro? It's important between this slide and the last one that we, because I want to mention it, it's important to mention it because we present this data once a year. So language is acquired through 4 phases: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So when students are able to express themselves in writing in a second language, they've reached some of the highest levels of proficiency. The problem is that the state does not, even though the state requires us to deliver instruction in the language that the kids are most proficient in, most of our recent immigrants are more proficient in Spanish, yet they have to take all tests in English when it comes to the state assessment, and they're not ready. The TELPUS will show, that will tell us, it's evidence that they're not ready to test in a second language, and yet the state does not provide a test in Spanish. The funding is not allocated to create a test in Spanish and do all of the validation and everything that goes with creating a new state assessment. And as much as we have tried in different committees at the state level to advocate for that, we have not been successful. But I think that as demographics shift across the state, others will begin to understand what we've been asking for a long time. And so I just want to put that out and make sure that you're aware of that, and that you know that we'll continue to advocate for doing what's right for students who are, for our second language learners.
Thank you. Continuing with, they also are looking at our LEP performance and dropout and graduation. And I'm happy to see the zeros. The dropout between 7th and 12th grade, we're always a year behind. So they're looking at 2016, we had 1.4. The state target was a 1.8, so there's a 0. So working on those task forces, we look at dropout recoveries, it's working. We have a 0 there. LEP, 4-year graduation rate, so we want our LEP students, our EL, English language learners, to graduate within 4 years, like the general ed population. A lot of them sometimes take 5 years, but our goal is 4 years and we need to graduate. We had an 82% graduation, 82.3% graduation in 2016. We had a class of 62, and 51 graduated. So it's the goal of our LPAC committee at the high school that how many 12th graders do we have? That's our focus, and we make sure that we're going to assist in helping them, providing interventions for them to graduate. So we received a 0 and very, very happy to see that our students are doing well. The next performance system is the ESSA, Title I. And these are our migrant students. And they measure the end of course passing rate. These are a high school. And we look across, we have received a 0 in all categories, high 90s. It's hard to, once you reach those 90s, it's hard to maintain, but they're doing fairly well. ELA also 77.4. So these are our migrant students. And what is a dropout graduation? Again, our students, the dropout, we had a 1.0, we received a 0, and a migrant 4-year graduation, we had 100% of our migrant students graduating. So they did very well. The stages of intervention, so once we come across and we look, okay, what were we staged at and what do we need to do? We have to provide, if we are a stage, there's the stage 1 through a stage 4. The stage 1s, we have to provide interventions. We have to work on a plan of what are we going to do to target students, and we keep it on file. At any time, if the state will want to see what are we doing, we have to provide that within 24 hours. So we have bilingual ESL received a stage 1, CTE and special education also received a stage 1. Our migrants, ESSA, were not staged, so they didn't receive stages. And that concludes our PLMES presentation.
Questions from the board? Comments? Mr. Salazar, comments?
I just want to thank Mrs. Amato for all the work that you're doing. I know how closely you work with our LPAC committees, making sure that our some of our most neediest students and our special ed students. You're also working with those art committees to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the kids. Thank you for all of that, and Mr. McDonough, we appreciate all of the work that you guys are doing. Thank you for the presentation.
If you all will stay there just a minute, I'm going to take just a few seconds here. I think most of us on the board have been here several years, and we see these reports come every year, and we see the numbers come every year. And I've been in areas where, you know, by law, this has to be done, this has to be presented, and you see areas where there's a deficiency. And I think going back, what makes you all special is that you see the deficiencies, and it goes through the district. It's not just brought to the board of, we're going to try to do this, we're going to create that. You do that with your planning, you do that with your professional development, you do that with your funding. And we've seen things change. And I remember 5 or 6 years ago, there was a big problem with our LEP students. 82% graduating in 4 years is unbelievable. I mean, to get them to graduate at all, if you could get them in 5 years, I know Ray and I both worked in a high school, and we know how difficult it is for these students that sometimes come with no education, some come with a very good education, but to get 82 point whatever it was to graduate in 4 years is unbelievable. And that's just an example of what y'all do. Whether it's the taper, whether it's the AEIS report, you take these numbers, you look at them, you all discuss them, and you put them into your plans, and you see them into the campus improvement plans. It's unbelievable what y'all do. We wouldn't have blue ribbon schools if you didn't do what you did, but more important than that, it's this that you see that may not be seen too much in blue ribbon presentations, but it's this that makes this school district what it is. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you all for doing the things that you do.
I feel like we should clap.
Tonight is the night for being self-serving, I guess. But you're right. You deserve more than that. But a clap we'll have to do tonight. All right, item number 2, Palmas Altas Wind Farm introduction. Mr. Salazar.
Mr. Amaya, members of the board, you will recall that in the past we've had other wind farms go up in the district. It's been overall a very good experience, and tonight we have Mr. Brian Dunneback of Acciona Energy with us to introduce a new project.
Good evening, Superintendent Salazar, President Amaya, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'm very thankful for being here tonight. Thank you for the invite. Especially thankful because I was learning a lesson this afternoon of which roads not to go down after it rained in a rental car. So very thankful for the gentleman who got a tractor, and a couple hours later I was out. So I'm very glad to be here. So the whole purpose of me being here is to introduce the Palmas Altos Wind Farm. I'm from a company called Acciona Energy. It may be familiar because we developed and constructed, we constructed the wind farm that's over by Bayview, the San Ramon Wind Farm, and I'll talk a little bit about that here shortly. Just a very quick introduction to Acciona Energy if you haven't heard of us before. We are an international company that works not just with energy but with infrastructure, hydrology, dams. The international company is headquartered in Spain. The North American headquarters, which is where I'm out of, is headquartered in Chicago. So we work in Canada, United States. Our other divisions, we have a Central American company and South American company as well. So well-versed with the development of renewable energy. Our company operates wind farms in Oklahoma, North Dakota, Illinois. We also have a solar farm in Nevada. And I'll talk about the Texas project with San Ramon and what we have in development for the next couple of years with Texas here shortly. So just a couple other quick notes. We are the biggest company dedicated to clean energies that's not related to any conventional utilities, meaning that we don't have any fossil fuel plants in our portfolio. We're partnered with we had a division that constructed wind turbines. That is separated from the energy group, although we still use those turbines, and those are the ones that we have used for the San Ramon project and ones that we're considering for Palmas Altos. So just like I was saying, it's just showing the global footprint of Acciona Energy. So well-versed with development, construction, operations of not just renewable energies, but large infrastructure projects. So San Ramon, as I was saying, is our first project in Texas. It's in Cameron County. So the first project that we did, we purchased it from a developer a few years back and finished up the development of that 2 years ago. It's located right outside Bayview. It consists of 31 Acciona wind power turbines for a total size of 93 megawatts. And what that means is about 30,000 homes it generates enough energy for about 30,000 homes. When we were working on construction, there's about 80 full-time construction jobs that we're working on at a time. We have about 7 permanent jobs in operation right now. One of the big things, if you saw any of the news about it earlier this summer about the ribbon cutting with San Ramon, and one thing that I did want to emphasize is Acciona has a strong commitment to the communities that they work in. It's very important for us to be a part of the community, to be a good neighbor of the community. One of the things that we do is a scholarship fund. We had issued a scholarship for a high school student to a college program. That first one was issued at the ribbon cutting ceremony. So just to give you an idea of what we're doing with San Ramon. Palmas Altos, the project that I'm working on right now for development, is located in the far northwest corner of Los Fresnos district. It's located just immediately west of 1847, and let me see if I can bring this up with the northern boundary is 2925. So you can kind of see our conceptual layout. We have 46 turbines here, so that's going to be a little bit bigger than the San Ramon wind farm. 145 megawatts. We've been working with a developer called Cielo Wind Power. Cielo were the initial group that was working on it, and we still talk with them about the project, but we purchased the project from a little bit earlier this year. We still have a little bit to do in terms of development. What that means is getting the necessary agreements from the utilities that we're going to be interconnecting with. So that in this case would be STEC, or South Texas Electric Cooperative. still finish that agreement. We'd have to, and I'll talk about, kind of next steps here shortly, but there's still some work to be done in terms of what needs to happen. As I mentioned, the turbines are going to be very similar to those that were installed in San Ramon, so similar type of height. We'd need to also build not just the turbines, but access road, underground collection line to accommodate this facility. So just a quick summary of where we're at right now. Land agreements with landowners have been negotiated, so we do have those in place. We are also finishing up our wind assessment and our environmental studies on this area. As mentioned, we're working with STEC on being able to connect the power into the grid. And we've done some preliminary engineering. So what we need to do now in the next few months, I'd say 3 to 6 months, the detailed engineering studies to complete those. We would need to work with the turbine provider. In this case, it's actually only Wind Power, and Nordex is the company. And they would give us a delivery plan for how they're going to bring the components into the area. We get the remaining building permits and any necessary permits required for the project. And then as early as later in 2018 is the potential start of construction for this project. Which would probably mean the earliest that would start operation is later in 2019. What this means for you is that we would stay in discussions with you about the updates to this project. We would possibly prepare what's called a limited value agreement, limited assessed valuation agreement, apologies. That may be coming in the next couple of months, either next month or early 2018. So, as I said, I just wanted to introduce myself, introduce the project, and answer any questions that you had.
Any questions by the members of the board? Mr. Salazar?
Mr. Maya, Mr. Young and I have provided the policy that lays out step by step the Chapter 313 agreements, and we've had a couple conversations and look forward to working with Acciona Energy again.
Thank you so much, sir, for being here. Looking forward to it.
My pleasure. Thank you very much again.
Mr. Salazar, item number 9, district reports.
Mr. Amaya, members of the board, district reports are presented here today. You'll notice that the reports are twice as long. During our October meeting, we had our meeting a little early, too early to present the reports. We did include them here, and let me pause here and see if you have any questions regarding the financial reports.
Tax collection report. I see, if I read it correctly, it's significantly lower right now than it has been. Is that correct?
Mr. Young?
Did I read it right, or just?
Yes, sir, Mr. Maya. I bet you if you go on the next couple of pages to the following month for October, it actually comes up and we're higher than we were last year. So it's kind of early in the game to start to worry too much unless you're more than just several percentage points off.
10-4. In other words, read the whole thing. Is that what you're telling me, Mr. Young?
That's all right. That's not what
The annual investment reports for the years 16 and 17 are also included in your packets, along with a transportation hazardous areas report. And I'm going to ask Mr. Young to give us some highlights there.
Thank you, Mr. Salazar. Yes, sir. We have the compliance issues here. Annual investment reports required to be reported to the board on an annual basis. We're a little bit behind on the 2016, but we're a lot early on the 2017. But we decided, since we were done with the numbers and were thinking about it at the time, we'd go ahead and report them both to you at the same time. The transportation report on hazardous areas is another compliance-related issue. We'll probably have in the next agenda next month asking you to approve that report. I was just discovered that we need to actually present it for approval. In the past, it's always been just presented to the board, but it's becoming more of an issue statewide as the state starts to look for ways to save money. This is an area that allows the district to claim transportation mileage and be reimbursed for collecting students within 2 miles of their home. Ordinarily, the statutes for transportation don't allow the district to claim anything within 2 miles of the actual school building. However, if in our opinion, based on the observations or based on police reports or things of that nature, the district believes that there is some danger presented to the children to coming to school, then we can claim that area. We can stop and pick those students up and be reimbursed for that. We did that many years in the past, and the state has just allowed us to present a report periodically to the board. When we contacted them this time, they told us, don't worry too much about it. You guys haven't built a significant number of new schools. You haven't expanded your territory. Unless things change by a material difference, it's not that big an issue for us. But nevertheless, since we couldn't actually find the original report where it was reported to the board, we felt better that we would bring it to you now, give you a chance to look at it, and over the next few weeks, if there's any questions, we'll tackle them and then bring it back for approval next month.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Item 4, 78% of the students we serve come from economically disadvantaged homes, and what our teachers have to do a lot of the times is create the experiences that kids would otherwise not have. Field trips provide some of those opportunities to create experiences for kids that they would otherwise not have, and we've made a concerted effort over the years to make sure that we don't have a duplication of experiences as kids move from one grade level to the other. We've aligned our efforts so that they're not going to the zoo twice, 2 consecutive years. And again, we maximize the experiences that students would have when they're in our school system. Mrs. Amato has been spearheading those efforts, and today we present our field trip report, and we've got some highlights, some new experiences that we would like to highlight.
This report was, the 2017-2018 field trip report was done in collaboration with our campus administrators. And one of the things that we did, and one of the things that I wanted to highlight, was our special education students. We talked about mainstreaming and providing opportunities with the general ed population. We went ahead and aligned our ALU classes, our upper ALU and our lower ALU with a grade level, age appropriate, and we also included our PPCD, or 3-year-olds. We also provided opportunities, in the years past, most of the opportunities were in Brownsville, South Padre Island. So we went ahead and provided opportunities within Region 1. There might be a play in McAllen that they can attend, or a drama. Also for our 5th graders, giving them an opportunity to travel to Corpus, the Corpus Aquarium, the Lexington, and maybe on the way stop by the university. Was one of the recommendations, to stop at the university, Texas A&M Kingsville, and provide that exposure to college. But those are most of the changes that were done.
We're also considering middle school field trips where students would pay installments, and we would like to take them out to state capitol and make sure that they're also going to visit universities there as well. It's something we discussed in cabinet today. It's not included in this report, but we wanted to make mention of that, and we were again be looking out for those students who can't afford it. There's plenty of us that would provide a scholarship, make sure that everyone has an opportunity to experience that as well. Any questions or comments on the reports included here?
Great field trips. I was looking at those. I was like, those are really neat opportunities. So thank you all for that.
Anyone else? Item 10, public audience. For the first time in a while, we do have Ms. Gloria Casas have signed up in public audience. I'm sure this is about the Cameron County Appraisal District. Ms. Casas, you have been on the board for a long time, so you know I'm going to read this short couple of paragraphs. The board encourages comments from citizens of the district or from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or as a representative of a group, may do so at this time. The board asks that comments pertain to public education issues and be no longer than 5 minutes. Remember that the board may not discuss or act upon any issue that is not posted on our agenda for tonight's meeting. If an issue mentioned is listed on tonight's agenda, the board will defer discussion until the appropriate time during the meeting. Ms. Casas.
Well, good evening, and first of all, I want to congratulate the community and the re-elected board members. I mean, what a sign of support. I mean, after having been a board member for 22 years, when you have elections like this, I mean, it is just sends a loud message to the rest of our Rio Grande Valley. So congratulations, Los Fresnos. Secondly, I want to thank Mr. Salazar. First of all, he's been my partner. I could say partner in crime in helping the community. My 50 years in, I'm retired 2 years ago, and my 50 years in working have always been in human services, and I have always had so much support from Los Fresnos. I mean, it's just incredible. Thank you, Mr. Salazar. And basically, you know, I had come, I believe that God has you where he needs to have you, and I truly believe that he meant for me to sit here and see the beauty of Los Fresnos. I've always had a lot of respect for Los Fresnos, and I kind of wanted to put a face to the name. Of course, you know, when you come to make your vote for the position for the Cameron County Appraisal District, and for those people who did not know me, I'm from La Feria, and I came over here basically for that. But you know what? I was the winner to sit here and to see this. I mean, it just makes my heart happy. And as I said, we've copied Los Fresnos in many, many projects, thanks to Mr. Salazar always lending a hand out to La Feria. And I have had the privilege of serving with the Cameron County Appraisal District for a couple of months. In January, I was sworn in to, definitely not to replace Mr. Noe Diaz, I mean, but he had left pretty big shoes for me to fill. But it's been very interesting to me. This appraisal district, I never really knew what it was, but I've been very privileged to serve with this, and it just so happens they're here, and I was like, oh my God, I've been so impressed with what they do for our region. And so I am the type of person, in my 22 years that I served in the school district, I've always been involved with public education, and I see the big connection they have with what we need to do. And so I ask, you know, that you, as I said, you will make your decision, and I'm sure you'll make the right decision, but I just wanted to put a face to the name of Gloria Casas. And I just, basically, as I said, I'm a winner already, just having sat there and watched you all, you know, with your reports. Congratulations to all the reports you had. Just, Los Fresnos is amazing. And I've always told Mark Mann, the city manager, because I work very closely with him also, I said, if I ever was to move somewhere else, and I'm saying, and not because I'm in Los Fresnos, but Los Fresnos would be my second choice for a home. I'm from Harlingen, when we chose to live in La Feria. But if I had a second choice, I think I would have moved to Los Fresnos. So with that being said, my congratulations to the community and to everybody. And now you put a face to a name when you make your decision. And I'd like to leave my little, I have a business card. I've retired. My husband still wonders if I'm really retired, because I'm always morning meeting, lunch meeting, 4 o'clock at Starbucks. But I want to leave my business card, because now I've devoted my 24/7 to a financial literacy. And I am very super involved with financial literacy. We got our first grant of building a coalition. So I'm going to leave you my business card. If I can be of any service, I'm here. Mr. Salazar knows that he can always pick up the phone and call me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your kind comments, ma'am. If you can just leave those, I'm sure that we'll get them. Thank you very much, Ms. Costa. Thank you, ma'am. We're going on to consent agenda, item number 11. Tonight we have 16 items on consent agenda, as usual. I'll ask the board members if they would like for me to pull either one or more of the items for discussion. We can move that over. If not, I am looking for I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda as posted. Item 1, through 16. Mr. Farias?
Move that we approve consent agenda as written.
Do I have a second? Mr. Garza? I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda as written, items 1 through 16. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous, 6-0. Into action items, Roman numeral 12, item number 1. Discuss and take action to approve a loan agreement with the State Comptroller of Public Accounts, State Energy Conservation Office, SECO, for energy efficiency improvements at Los Fresnos High School, Los Cuates Middle School, Resaca Middle School, Las Yescas Elementary, Lopez Riggins Elementary, and Villarreal Elementary. Is there a motion? Ms. Garcia?
I so move.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Ms. Peterson? We have a motion and a second to approve the loan agreement with the State Comptroller of Public Accounts, State Energy Conservation Office, SECO, for energy efficiency improvement at Los Fresnos High School, Los Cuates Middle School, Resaca Middle School, Las Yescas Elementary, Lopez Riggins Elementary, and Villarreal Elementary. Discussion. There being no discussion, we have a motion and a second, as I just read. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous. Item number 2 under action items. Discuss and take action to approve out-of-state student travel. The Fresnos High School cheerleaders to Orlando, Florida, February 9th through the 12th, 2018. Is there a motion? Ms. Peterson?
Sure, I'll go ahead. The out-of-state student travel, Los Fresnos High School cheerleaders to Orlando, Florida on February 9th to the 12th, 2018.
We have a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Trevino. We have a motion by Ms. Peterson and a second by Mr. Trevino to approve the out-of-state student travel, in this case the Los Fresnos High School cheerleaders traveling to Orlando, Florida, February 9th to the 12th, 2018 of next year. Discussion. There is no discussion. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving this item, please signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous. Item number 3, discuss and take action to approve the proposal by the Cameron, I think that should probably be Cameron County Appraisal District, is that correct? For renovation of Approval District headquarters. Is there a motion? Mr. Trevino. We have a second? Ms. Farias? I have a motion and a second to approve the proposal by the Cameron County Appraisal District for renovation of Appraisal District headquarters. I apologize. Discussion? There being no discussion, there's a motion and a second to approve the proposal by the Cameron County Appraisal District for renovation of the Appraisal District headquarters. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. Item number 4, discuss and take action to approve the resolution to vote for Gloria Casas or Antonio Zabaleta to hold position number 8 at the Cameron County Appraisal District Board of Directors. Is there a motion? Mr. Garza?
I move to approve the resolution to vote for Antonio Zabaleta to hold position 8 at the Cameron County Appraisal District Board of Directors.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Ms. Garcia?
I'll second.
Excuse me. We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution to vote for Antonio Zabaleta to hold position 8 at the Cameron County Appraisal District Board of Directors. Discussion. Go ahead, sir. Not until we decide this one. We have a motion and a second on the floor right now. We can have a discussion.
I'll hold.
Any discussion on the motion? Let me clarify the motion. Our motion, as written, is to vote for Gloria Casas or Antonio Zavaleta, and a motion has been made and seconded to vote for Antonio Zavaleta to hold position 8 at the Cameron County Appraisal District Board of Directors. Discussion. All those in favor of Mr. Antonio Zavaleta, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? We have a vote of 4-0-2, 2 abstaining. Is that correct? Okay. So our resolution should be for Mr. Antonio Zavaleta. Excuse me? Go ahead, ma'am.
You have a motion on the floor, and if that motion had not passed, then you would have had a second motion for the other person. And if neither of those had passed, then you wouldn't have a resolution at all. But right now, you will have a resolution endorsing Dr. Zavaleta.
Right. All right, item number 5. To discuss and take appropriate action to approve the superintendent's personnel recommendations for the positions for 2017-2018 school year of teachers. Is there a motion? Ms. Garcia.
I move to approve the superintendent's personnel recommendations for the 2017-2018 school year for teachers.
Is there a second? Mr. Garza? We have a motion and a second to approve the superintendent's personnel recommendations for the positions of teacher for the 2017-2018 school year. Discussion. There being no discussion, all those in favor of approving the motion which has been seconded, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. At this point, it is... Oh, do we have our new teachers here? I'm sorry. Please stand. I apologize. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. We apologize for the lengthiness of tonight's meeting. Usually it's not this long, but congratulations. We're going to come out and meet you as soon as I read this short advertisement. And we're going to go into, it is 7:49. We're going to go into closed session pursuant section 551.071 and 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. We good? Item number 2 is to consider, discuss, and take possible action. I'm going to just add that regarding resignation, resolution, and rescission regarding teacher GM, proposed termination during the contract period. Is there a motion? Mr. Garza.
I move to approve the settlement resolution as discussed in executive session and to rescind the previous action item to propose termination during the contract period and to authorize the superintendent to accept the resignation of teacher Jeronimo Martinez.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Trevino. Second, as read by Mr. Garza. Discussion. There being no discussion, a motion and a second has been into the read into the record by Mr. Garza, second by Mr. Trevino. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It is approved unanimously. Item number 3, consider and take possible action regarding misread? Is that what y'all are trying to? You okay? I know it's real late, but I'm still going from 2 to 3. Consider and take possible action regarding possible resolution regarding TWC/EEOC claim by LM. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Maya,
Ms. Garcia,
okay, let me make my motion real quick. I move to authorize a counteroffer on the settlement resolution as discussed in executive session and to resolve the TWC EEOC complaint for Ms. Lisa Morale.
I have a motion by Ms. Garcia. Is there a second? Mr. Farias. I have a motion and a second on record read by Ms. Garcia. Is there discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor of the motion read by Ms. Garcia, seconded by Mr. Farias, signify by raising your right hand, please. It's unanimous. Item number 4, consider and take possible action regarding possible resolution regarding TWC EEOC claim by JMG. Do I have a motion? Mr. Garza.
I move to approve the settlement resolution as discussed in executive session and to resolve the TWC EEOC complaint for George Metzger Galarza and to authorize the superintendent to take all action necessary regarding settlement resolution on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
We have a motion on the record. Is there a second? Mr. Trevino? Discussion on the motion? There is no discussion. We have a motion and a second regarding a possible resolution as read by Mr. Garza. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. Mr. Salazar, announcements?
Mr. Amaya, members of the board, on Thursday, November 16th, the Falcons will take on Edinburgh Bobcats in a bi-district playoff at Richard Flores Stadium in Edinburgh. On November 20th through the 24th, we suspend normal operations for the Thanksgiving holidays. All schools and offices will be closed. On Monday, December 11th at 6 p.m., we have our regularly scheduled board meeting. Basketball season begins. The boys take on Corpus Christi Veterans on November 14th at 6:30. That game is going to be played at Los Fresnos United in the Dome. And the girls versus La Jolla Juarez Lincoln, November 14th at 7:30 p.m. That game is going to be played at Los Fresnos High School, in the gym at Los Fresnos High School. Those are all the announcements we have.
Anything from the board members? Take this opportunity to congratulate or wish a very happy Medicare qualifying birthday to my wife today. Just for the record.
Happy
Meeting
birthday.
is adjourned.